Hey everyone, this is David. Welcome back behind the velvet rope. Let's just get right into it today because we are joined by the one, the only Psychic Leota.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
What is going on? How are you? I just want to say before we even begin that you are from the Psychic Source. We have had Psychic Robin on, we've had Psychic Pandora, and now we are having Psychic Leota. And everybody needs to welcome behind the velvet rope. Everyone needs to go to Psychic Source. And I tell people that all of the psychics are great. If you don't have to go to just one, but you are here if they want to try to find you, you go to the Psychic Source, just download the app. And if you enter code Velvet, you now get a 35-minute reading for $20, which is literally unheard of. I've never heard
Mhm.
of it before in my life, right? It's a great deal.
It's fantastic. And honestly, Psychic Source, they send out promotions, they send out coupons, and they really vet all their psychics. So everything is confidential. I mean, I love working for them for that reason. So it's fantastic.
I love it. And I tell people the way you do it is you have to say reading now. If you go in and you go to talk to Psychic Robin or now Psychic Leota and you want to schedule an appointment for 3 weeks from now at 9 a.m., that is fine, but you will not get the $20 deal. You can pay at any time, but when you're ready for your reading, you have to say reading now because a lot of people seem to get confused and they say, why is this reading $200? Well, it won't be $200 if you only put in 20, but you just click on the reading now. And so it'll say, like, Psychic Robin has a 5 hour wait because she was on behind the velvet rope. Now you're probably going to have a several hour wait, which is fine. You can wait. A lot of people wait. But if you don't want to wait, all the psychics, I can't stress it enough. I have gone to so many of them. And the thing is, I actually think it's good to go to different psychics and get just a different feel because, right? Like, especially if you hear the same thing 3 times, you're like,
Hmm.
wow. Wow, this
Absolutely.
really
And
is there.
every psychic connects differently. Every psychic is going to have different interpretations and different insights. I wouldn't recommend like psychic roulette where you're looking for the answer that you want to hear, but at the same time, that's how I started working for psychic sources. I was calling a psychic myself and I was super impressed. So I still get readings from other psychics on the source. So
Right.
definitely.
Like if you want it, you're right. Like psychic, I've never heard that term, but I like it. It's like psychic roulette. Yes, we all want to hear something, but we also want to hear the truth, right? So we
Hmm.
don't want to keep going until we hear the thing that kind of validates what we want to hear, kind of
Hmm.
defeats the purpose, right?
Exactly. And I mean, any good reading should empower you to make changes. So I always say, nothing's written in stone. It's insight so that you can decide what becomes reality. So don't look for what you want to hear, look for what you need to hear because you have the power to change it.
I think so. And that's why, too, I just think of all the times to me, I love December and January, right? Like December is a great time for a reading because it's the end of the year. And I don't know, I'm very reflective on this year. I had a good year. It's not like every year is good, but I had a good year, both business wise and personally, and just you just want to kind of reflect on it and kind of hear things for the new year. And I think January is a great time too, because you start the year and you just want to hear what's ahead. So I think this personally, the next 2 months are the best time for a reading.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a fresh start.
Well, let's talk. So, I mean, Psychic Robin has been on twice. I know what her kind of method of doing things is, but talk to me about how you work. Like, I know where I want to start, but like,
Hmm.
how do you work? Like, what information? I can give you as much information
Hmm.
based on what we're going to talk about. We'll go through different people and scenarios, but tell me how you work so people that are listening know.
Well, I'm a clairsentient psychic, so my natural ability is through feeling. A lot of people are really familiar with clairvoyance, where they see things, and a lot of psychics have multiples. But my primary is feeling, and so as you're going through different people, say the birth dates, it doesn't really affect how I connect, but I know that some of the listeners and some of the people who are tuning in may also really be into astrology, so that may be applicable for them. Um, and then I also use tarot or oracle cards to just kind of confirm because I don't have that visual like a clairvoyant would. And pretty much that's how I connect. It's a little bit different.
Well, that's why I like it. That's why I wanted you to come on because I think it's good to have a balance. Well, I want to start with somebody named Dorit Kemsley. I don't even know if I
Okay.
have all the birthdays for everyone, but I have hers. It is 7/14/76. So 7/14/76, Dorit Kemsley.
Hmm.
I can give you some sense of what she's going through, or I can just say her name. Like, what do you need? Do you want anything more from me? I can give you some stuff of what she is going through if that helps.
Well, you know what? Let's see what comes up first, and then we can get
Okay.
into more specifics. Does that work?
That's
Okay.
great with me. I don't have to give you any specifics, but I have plenty, once based on what you say, I'll have some things to say. But yeah, Dorit is where I want to start.
So I do know that she's a Cancer because I'm also a Cancer. So that's the one that I do know by heart. Um, it definitely feels like someone who has been wounded, but is actually growing in strength from the things that they've been through. This does feel like a big transitional period for her. Um, it feels like I think a lot of people are looking at her very critically as if she could crumble, but it doesn't look like she's going to do that. I actually see reinvention. I see her reclaiming her personal power, really standing in that moving forward. I'm seeing a lot of financial strain. And so I think that that is something that is going to challenge her, but I don't feel like it's something that's going to defeat her. So I actually really like her energy. I like where she's coming from.
Do you think, I mean, she is going through a lot of changes now. Do you think that, like, what this change is ultimately going to be good for her? Do you see this change, like, lasting throughout what the holidays and all of 2025? Like, she is going through a lot.
I would say 2025, it definitely feels like, especially early 2025, is going to be a time where relationships that are no longer serving her, romantic and platonic, are going to fall away. And it also feels like I'm seeing conflict right now with a lover and conflict with a platonic friend. But it also feels like I think she's going to keep the friend. I think she's going to drop the lover.
You do. You think her and the friend will make it and her and the lover won't.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess that brings up a question. So she is on the show Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Do you feel there's anything inauthentic? Because there's a lot, she is having issues with this. Well, it's her husband now, but they actually are. So what you say is it makes sense because they are separated.
Hmm.
It doesn't sound like you think they're going to make it. There's a lot of chatter now amongst the listeners and viewers of this Real Housewives of Beverly Hills that this is not real, that this conflict with her husband is fake, that, sometimes like you have to make things up to stay on the show.
Hmm.
So there is that which is surfacing. I have my own feelings on this, but I don't want to sway you. Like, do you feel it's real? I mean, it sounds like you do if you don't think it's going to work out with the lover.
I think the conflict with her husband or lover, what's coming through, um, I think that's real. I do think that it's played up, maybe, for entertainment purposes, but I do see a lot about broken trust, bringing out parts of her that she really doesn't want. So I would say codependency. It feels like there is very likely substance abuse. Although I don't feel like that's current, it still feels like the damage has been done. Now, I will say that the conflict with the friend, I feel like they're still actively spending time together. So I don't feel like I feel like that's what's probably been played up.
And you think her and the friend, who in this case, the woman's name is Kyle Richards, you think her and the friend will be just fine?
I feel like they will be. Yeah. It feels like they do genuinely have issues with one another. Like I think that's real. But it feels like I don't I feel like it may have been played up a bit more. It feels like she can be very insensitive. I wouldn't call her manipulative, but I do think she can be a bit calculating at times.
Dorit or the friend?
Great. Well, I would say both of them probably are a little bit two peas in the same pod. And so I think they probably bump heads a lot for that reason. They both don't see their own faults initially and get very hypersensitive to the other.
Do you sense other friend conflicts for Dorit in 25? The show is pre-taped, so we're watching stuff now. I mean, there
Hmm.
are other people, there's a woman named Sutton, there's a woman named Garcelle. She has lots of conflicts this season, but that was then. I mean, we're heading into a different, the show is airing now, and sometimes things are resolved by the time the show airs. Other
Hmm.
times, you watch something and you're like, wow, well, I'm mad all over again. And then there's social media. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you see these other relationships from maybe
I mean,
in your life?
it's funny when you brought up Garcelle. I was very drawn to that. It does feel like I would say in the coming year, I'm seeing her having trouble keeping balance. And it feels like she's not going to have as much, be as flexible or adaptable. And I actually think that she's not going to be as vocal about why that is. And so I think other people are going to start to misinterpret that as her being rude, insensitive, inconsiderate. Um, so yeah, I think that there may be some static between those two.
And do you think this is all good for her? Like, is she overstepping, or is this like, no, this is kind of what, this is the right thing to do? Like, I think like you might have
Mhm.
said coming into your own. I think you used those
Yeah,
words.
I don't think, honestly, well, and we're dealing with somebody who is a star on a reality TV show, right? So part
Yes.
of that, I think, is kind of want a little bit of drama, something interesting happening. But, when you say, is that good for her? No. Can she handle it? Yeah. I don't think she's going to break. I think a lot of people are looking at her like she's already broken, but I actually feel like there's a lot of strength um, there. But honestly, if this was a friend or a sister of mine, I would say stay away from the drama because it's unnecessary and it's not going to help you. You got enough to deal with.
You have enough to deal with. I mean, her husband, there was, a claimed his name is PK, Paul Kemsley. He was born August 23rd, 1967. So he's older. But, how is he doing? There was a substance issue. You mentioned substance issue. How is he doing amidst this separation, which it sounds like you don't think they're going to make it?
I don't think they're going to make it. I think ultimately that they are going to split amicably. I am seeing some signs of infidelity on his part. I don't know if that's recent. Um, it does feel like I would say co-parenting is probably what I would say. And I actually do see him on the right path. So it feels like, I guess, sobriety. So it does feel like I think he's going to be successful with that. I don't think he's going to be successful in saving the relationship because it feels like um, I almost think that alcoholism was self-medicating for a deeper issue that he's not quite addressing. So that's what I would say.
And what about like how are each of them independently? Sometimes when a marriage or any relationship is falling apart or breaking up, it's a mutual decision. Both parties are fine. They just have to get through it. Is you sense
Mhm.
one of these two is like, do you sense they're equal? Like, I mean, it could be amicable, or is someone kind of pining over the other, not wanting this as much as the other?
I would say I think Dorit, I actually think they both are actually pretty happy with the separation as far as I think it's best for both of them. However, if I had to say one was really blindsided, like I'm literally seeing the symbol for being blindsided, I think it was Dorit. It feels like she had invested so much into the marriage and she was still on board with trying to make it work. And it really feels like he was the one that was just like, I'm done. And so I don't know if it's that she wants to be with him. I really don't think that's it. I think she's hurt that someone that she had a child with and that she invested so much time into would be so insensitive and so disrespectful after everything that she feels she's done for him. And I think that's legit.
Yeah, that's like a common, characteristic. Like you may not want someone, or you might not necessarily want the relationship to be going, but you don't want them to not want you, right? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of a normal human
Hmm.
emotion that I could relate to.
Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
about you mentioned financial? Were you saying you see good financial stuff? Like it's all good, or are there issues here for either of them?
It doesn't look good. It definitely looks like they have old financial issues that they need to resolve. It feels like this is also attached to some kind of legal issue, maybe multiple legal issues. It also feels like they're going to be unloading a property Um, and it feels like they're going to lose a lot of finances in that. Um, it feels like they're both kind of struggling to keep their head above water financially right now. I think they're going to be fine, because it feels like they both do very well. And I think they're actually pretty good with finances, but it feels very much like their lifestyle that has got them in trouble, spending more than what was coming in.
Well, they definitely live a big lifestyle. There is rumors, although I don't know if it's true, that their house is in pre-foreclosure. There's a lot of drama surrounding that. So maybe that's kind of what you're seeing.
I think that's true. I would say that feels very true to me that
And,
it is in
there's
foreclosure.
questions about who owns the house and like whether it's either of them or they just rent it. So moving on, we do have another woman in the same general area where they live. Her name is Teddi Mellencamp. She used to be on this show, Beverly Hills Housewives, but she's not anymore. Her date of birth is July 1st in 1981. So
Another
she
Cancer.
is, yeah, she is a Cancer. Although
Hmm.
that seems so she's going through, well, what do you see for her? I guess what are your before we get into it, what are your feelings on this woman, Teddi Mellencamp?
I mean, this feels like somebody who I think she's very polarizing. It feels like she can be very blunt and direct. But I think she is, for the most part, pretty honest. Now, I do feel like she can be very judgmental, and I think that's kind of coming back to bite her. Um, so this feels like she has one romance that's falling apart and another one that is, I guess, blossoming. Um, is she fully divorced yet? Is she still married?
She is still married. She is getting a divorce.
He's seeing someone else for sure. Um,
And she's very tight-lipped, right? There's some rumors that there's some another guy involved.
I would say that's what I'm picking up on. And, the thing about it is it kind of feels like karma in action, where I think, we think of karma as like a scoreboard. You do something bad happens to you. But in reality, that energy will come back to really teach us and help us grow. And I do feel like I'm seeing a lot of symbols for her being very judgmental of other people. And so, you know, we all have free will, but I think she's found herself in a romantic situation now that is making her rethink her past judgments of others. And so I think that that's going to be a learning experience for her.
Do you think, because there is a rumor that she's maybe having an affair with her horse trainer. I don't know that, like, she hasn't really confirmed that or denied it. So technically we don't even know if she's in, but you feel that she is
I
interested in
feel,
someone.
I would say I do think that she is, when you brought that up, the energy lights up. So I'm going to say yes. I do believe she is having an affair or was having an affair and still is seeing this person. It does feel like this person was married, I think, when they started seeing each other. I don't know if they are now, but it also feels like this person's wife or ex-wife um, would be able to confirm. It feels like that's the person who actually discovered the affair.
And do you see, I mean, Teddy has a podcast that she kind of does the same thing I do, although different. And I haven't listened, but apparently she has been judgmental on there. So maybe that's what you're saying. Like, I think on there, she has
Mhm.
talked about people and affairs on other shows. And I think she has had opinions on that, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that this is giving her new perspective, especially because I don't judge people. I think, if I was someone else and I lived every moment of their life and I walked in their shoes, I would do the exact same thing that they did. Um, but I will say that I think her husband's that she cheated on, technically, she was cheated on a lot. Like it feels like she's still accountable for her decisions, but I feel like she felt very justified in having this affair.
Like you feel what? That her husband cheated on her a bunch is what you're sensing.
I'm seeing a lot of infidelity on his part. It feels like he's someone who really needs a lot of validation. It feels very ego driven. And so, people have different vices. I think his is getting validation from women. And so I think she's been dealing with that for a long time.
Interesting. Yeah, I am not a judgmental person either. The only person I judge is myself. In my
Hmm.
old age, I am learning to be kind to myself and not be so hard to myself and not judge myself because if nobody else is perfect, why the hell do I have to be perfect myself? I tend to
Exactly.
hold myself to a higher standard but I do not have any judgment for anyone else in the world. Well, that is possible. There are rumors that he has cheated. Where do you see kind of next year, or like at least the beginning of next year that we're about to be in, going for Teddi? Like, is this a mess? Is this Dorit and PK you see kind of amicable things for them? Is this a mess? Is Teddi, is it all going to work out? Like, what do you see for Teddi like, romantically? Do you get any feelings?
I definitely feel like they are going to separate. I also feel like I think her and I guess the horse trainer is the person that I'm seeing like this affair partner. I think they're going to remain friends, but at the same time, he's unfaithful too. And so I think she recognizes that. I think they really do have a genuine connection, but at the same time, why would you get out of one situation and get into pretty much the same one with someone else that you just like better right now? Um, so I actually don't see, I see a lot of her closing the chapter on those romantic connections. Um, I don't see a whole lot of dating in 2025. It feels like she's going to be very focused on career, very focused on finance. Like she is a very, very driven, tenacious person. And so I think that's really where she's going to be focused.
And not a lot of dating. Do you see a lot of dating for, not to jump all around, but for Dorit?
Mm, oh, here's the thing. I don't think that Dorit is planning on dating. I think that she is working on herself, and I think that's exactly what she needs to be doing. Um, but I do feel like she is going to meet someone. This does feel like it would be late spring, summer like time frame when the seasons start to change. And I do think she's going to meet someone who is very grounded, very calm, very well balanced, and I think that she's going to be kind of drawn into that.
Very wealthy.
Yeah, I would say financial stability is the term I like to use.
I mean, I don't want to put that out there. I'm just saying that that's a question that, I mean, it is Beverly Hills, so
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so for late spring, we'll keep an eye on Dorit and Teddi. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense sometimes, the one that you're on the rebound with. Well, I have more relationship questions for a woman, since we're on this, for a woman named Bethenny Frankel. Now, her name is Bethenny Frankel. She is born 11/4 1970. She was
Scorpio.
on, right. So we're leaving Scorpio, we're leaving Beverly Hills. She was on a show called The Real Housewives of New York. She lives in New York and Connecticut and the Hamptons. She actually, some say, well, let me not even give you anything. I keep forgetting. Just tell me what you feel for Bethenny, and then I can get into some details.
So this is a very interesting person. Um, I really like her. I feel very much like she is somebody who can come across very cold, and calculating, which is not unusual with Scorpios. Scorpios are actually very, very passionate people. But outwardly, they can be extremely mysterious, extremely secretive. Um, this feels like someone who did not start off with a fair shake. There is a lot of trauma. There is a lot of issues. I do feel like she's in a really good place where it feels like she has had a lot of growth and a lot of perspective on relationships. And so it actually feels like she's in a better place now to be. Does she have one child?
Yes, she has one child.
So it does feel like she's in a better place to be a mother. It also feels like she is in a better place to be a partner. I'm seeing like a series of failed relationships. And so I think that that's probably been the hardest thing for her because it doesn't feel like she was taught to connect emotionally. And so it feels like, she had to collect all those tools in her toolbox. So I don't think she's built anything with anyone that was substantial prior to now. I do feel like in the next, I don't know if it's going to be 2025, maybe later in 2025, I do think she is going to connect with someone that I think she's going to be able to move forward with and kind of have a better, healthier relationship with.
She had, I mean, not that I know her personally, but she had a rough upbringing, like a mother who kind of partied and a father who was at the racetracks, and they were well to do, but I don't think she had a lot of nurturing or
Yeah.
parenting. Sometimes when your parents are absent, that's kind of all you want. Like people think they want freedom as a child until you actually have two parents that give you complete freedom, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big reasons that this person seeks validation and recognition is because she didn't get that at a young age. And the truth of the matter is that if you have a strong male role model father figure who really sees you and respects you as a young lady, you don't seek attention because you know what it feels like to be seen. And I think this is somebody who has sacrificed a lot in the pursuit of being seen, but really hasn't been seen in the right way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, she has had a bunch of failed relationships. Well, recently they've been successful guys. And, I don't know. I don't know if it's because she's working all the time. Like you said, I mean, she's very into the work. She's very into her business.
She's a gangster. I don't know how else to describe her. Like, you know what she reminds me of? Have you seen that documentary about Martha Stewart on Netflix?
I haven't. I used to work for Martha Stewart a long time ago in another lifetime. So every single person that has in my life has asked me. I am the only person that hasn't seen it, but a lot of people have asked me if I've seen it. So that's what she reminds you of.
Yeah. Like it feels like someone who I don't think is an awful person. I think she has a capacity for love, but it feels like she is a workaholic. She prioritizes outcomes. She judges people by what they can produce and if they're competent. And so I think she really alienates a lot of people because of that. But underneath, I actually feel like she's very independent, intuitive, like a lot of good things.
She was funny enough. She was actually on, I don't know if you know this, there was a show after Donald Trump's The Apprentice, there was a Martha Stewart The Apprentice for one season. And Bethenny, this is prior to her being on Housewives, she was on that show and she came in second. She did come in
Oh
second.
my gosh.
And Martha
Okay.
notoriously said, you're loud, you're rude, you're obnoxious, you'll never amount to, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, you're not for my
Hmm.
company. And so she came in second, but she didn't win because she was too like a bull in a china shop. And her and Martha have had this thing throughout the years of like, do you regret it now, Martha? Because I mean, look at me. She's gone on to be very successful from the
Hmm.
housewives business. Like she had a company and she sold it and it made a ton of money.
Yeah. I think she's a smart businesswoman. I think there's a lot to learn from her. I think she's a mess when it comes to personal relationships. I think she's getting better about that because she's taking more accountability. And but it is funny. I don't know, of course, I don't know these women at all, but based off of what I'm seeing, it's funny that people who are similar in a lot of ways tend to not get along. And so that makes sense what you said.
And I think, like you talk about seeking approval, I think she sought Martha's approval even after that, after she was famous. Like they notoriously, she had a talk show for a minute. Martha was on it. She kind of told Martha off on the and very nicely, like in a joking way, and like Martha's like, oh, you weren't really likable. I mean, I think they've come together now.
Yeah.
So you say like maybe for her, the end of the year, like middle of the year, she is with someone new now. This guy's name is Tom Vellante. I mean, he's successful. I mean, it's a new relationship. Do you see her still on her journey, or could this be the one, or do you get bad feelings about this guy? There are some things he's done recently that I'm curious about.
Yeah, I don't think that he is going to be a long-term partner for her. I will say, I think she's kind of starting to get it right in relationships. I think some people come into our lives because they're meant to be there long term, and sometimes it's a meaningful connection, but it's meant to give insight, and I think that's what this guy is there for. Um, so yeah, I don't see them. I feel like they're going to separate pretty early in 2025.
You do.
Hmm.
There's some things, I mean, look, when you're on a dating app, you can reach out to everyone, right? Until it's serious with one person, you're not obligated. There is this thing that recently surfaced that he was talking to another housewife that used to be on New York. Sometimes we have this other guy, Louis Realias, and this other guy, John Jansen. We don't need to get into that here today, but they have dated several housewives. So just like to me, a little bit of a red flag, but again, maybe it's nothing like when you're talking to one New York housewife. I mean, there's a lot of people on the dating app. How is this? Is that
Hmm.
really a coincidence? So, but you see what a separation early in the year.
I do. I feel like he isn't attracted to her for who she is at the core. It feels more like a superficial attraction. And I'm not feeling like that is a coincidence. I feel like he likes the status, he likes the attention, he likes the validation and the clout. Um, yeah, and I think at this point she is looking for someone that she can have more of a authentic, intimate relationship with, which that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. The last person to focus on today, it's a guy. His name is Tom Sandoval. He was born July 7th in 1982. What type of vibes are you or feelings do you get from this guy? You
Oh,
just
he's a hot mess. This guy. Okay, so immediately very likable, very charming. I could definitely see why he's as successful with the ladies as he is. Um, Great friend with benefits, awful significant other. It feels like he is very selfish. I'm seeing a childlike self-centeredness with him. It feels like there's a lot of issues with impulsivity. It just feels like an eternal frat boy. He's crap with money. He's a good liar. Um, I don't like him, but he's likable. It's basically what I would say. Um,
That makes sense to me. He does have a charm, but a lot of people do not like him. So,
yeah.
in what you say, he's a hot mess, just in the sense of what? He's all over the place. How?
I mean, usually I look at love, health, finances right out of the gate. And usually there's one thing that people can kind of focus on that needs attention at any given time. With him, it looks like he's broke. He's just like losing money, just terrible with any kind of investment or savings. It feels like he has good friends that I think have helped him, but any kind of it feels like financial or business venture that he's had to actually take responsibility for and show up for, it just doesn't feel like it's successful because he doesn't have the stick-to-itiveness or responsibility to do that. Um, Love, it feels like I think that he does want to connect with someone sincerely, but I mean, don't we all? Um, but it feels like he still sees relationships as transactional, and it's not about what he can do to build a relationship with a significant other. It's what can he get out of it. And then if he gets bored, he'll just start dating someone else. Like monogamy is a suggestion for this guy. And so the other thing that I'm seeing health wise, I don't know if he has health issues currently, but he's heading in that direction because he is definitely not taking care of himself. Um, I think he takes care of himself, like his aesthetic. I should clarify that. But when it comes to drinking, drug use, um, that kind of healthcare, that self-care, it definitely feels like he's pushing the limits of that, and it's going to take a toll.
In what, like sometime in 2025, like his health might be in question
I
or
would
there might be a health
say,
scare.
I think that he is going to start, I think he's already experiencing some negative consequences of like his lifestyle. Um, I would say, even if I'm being conservative within the next 3 years, I think there's going to be something that the public knows about that is health related.
Wow. He does have some businesses, one bar, it was called Tom Tom, like he sold that back to another investor. And he does have another bar, Schwartz and Sandy's, which is kind of closing down at the moment. Granted, it's hard to have a bar. I would never invest in a restaurant personally, but
Hmm.
he made money, but the show he was on is also, it's going on, but the whole cast is being replaced. And so maybe that's
Hmm.
the money problems that you see because I don't really know. I mean, he has a band that he tours with, but I think his income has drastically decreased in the past, I would say, 2 months.
Yeah. It feels like he's good at marketing himself. It feels like he's good at cultivating his fan base. And like I said, I think he's a good, I mean, I don't know because I've never heard his music, but it feels like that's something he's very interested in that he gets a good response from. I think he would be a good front of house guy, good bartender, good performer. I mean, when he's right in front of you, and you don't know all the other stuff that he's doing, he's very likable. But I just don't think he ever wants to settle down or grow up. It feels like he wants to be a rock star.
So if he's dating someone now, you don't foresee it lasting.
Let's see. Well, I actually do feel like, so it does feel like he is dating someone now. This does feel like I'm seeing like multiple water signs. And so it feels like they're matching. And so it feels like they both have a deeper emotional level. They relate to each other really well. There's a really, really strong physical attraction between the two of them. Um, and it feels like she may be a bit younger than him. And so it feels like, I guess she may be, I don't want to say anything bad about somebody, but it feels
It's
like she may
okay.
either be more gullible or more lenient so that he can have indiscretions and kind of do these things. So I actually feel like they may last for a couple of years. Long term, once she starts to feel a bit more neglected and emotionally neglected from him, I do think that they're going to part ways, but this could last for a little while.
Well, he's had other girlfriends. A girlfriend before this. Well, he had a girlfriend he cheated on with someone very gullible. And he's kind of the type that needs someone gullible, almost like to look up at him. Like he kind of needs that type of validation.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Like he definitely wants the spotlight. He definitely wants that ego boost. Um, I will say that in the past, it feels like he was more comfortable with betraying people who were close to him. Uh, how would I say this? I see improvement. I think he's still a cheater, but I don't think he would cheat with someone's best friend. So I do think that that's improvement, I guess, relatively speaking. But yeah,
He's gotten a lot of flack. And, as far as the girlfriend maybe staying with him, there is this maybe she's there because he is technically more famous than her. And so
hmm,
I'm not sure she necessarily, right. She might turn a blind eye to indiscretions. I could see that. And they're both hot. So when you say
yeah,
there's a strong attraction, that wouldn't shock me. Interesting. So, I mean,
yeah,
I think a lot of these things are spot on. Well, listen, you need to come back. Um, Everyone needs to, if they want a reading with you, hopefully you've enjoyed being here. This is your first
yes,
time. We love having you. That's why, I mean, I like speaking to different psychics from Psychic Source because your style is so different than Robin's, and they're both great styles. They're just different. And
hmm,
everyone could go to Psychic Source and download the app and enter code VELVET and pay $20 and you get a 35-minute reading. And you have to click, you can pay, you don't have to do the reading then, but when you're ready, you have to click reading now. And what I think is so great, which I tell people is you don't have to do a 35-minute reading. You could do a 10-minute reading with one person, a 10-minute reading with
hmm,
someone else. Like you can divide up the 35 minutes.
yes, exactly. You have your rollover minutes, and you can also do messages. We have like, if you just have a simple question and you want to, send those messages, we have a lot of options. So it's great.
And I think what you said is so crucial because every time I get a reading, that is the key. Don't do reading roulette and just try to hear something. Just keep an open mind for what you're actually hearing. Like just
Hmm.
I'm the type that likes to hear bad news if it's bad news. I'm such a realist. Like, I don't want to
Mhm.
hear that life is rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
If there is something looming for me in January, I don't want to hear about rainbows and unicorns. I just want to hear the real deal. So I really
Well,
appreciate that type of reading.
yeah, and honestly, I don't think there's really bad news in a reading because, like I said, you decide, you change it. You don't like what you hear, you're empowered to make those changes in your life. So I think it's just information, so you can be prepared.
I agree. That's why I love readings. That's why I love readings in December and January because I get very reflective these 2 months. So, but I'll share the Psychic Source link with everyone and you will have to come back. We have so much more to cover. There's so many more people that we could have talked about. And it's not always just relationships, but you happen to be catching us on a week where there's a lot going on with a lot of these people. So,
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for my budding reality TV show addiction. I'm going to have to follow up with all of this now.
you're gonna have to start watching. You just start, if you have anything, start with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. That's where I would
All
start
right.
with. You don't even just start with this season. You've only missed like, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes. You don't even have to start way back. You can pick it up easily.
All right. I'm going to
So.
do